During the 80s, everyone was into martial arts and ninjas. Bruce Lee was a household name, and on the playground everyone was arguing about whose dad had the most black belts. Hollywood actually followed suit and was releasing kung fu movies like they were going out of styles. And with all this popularity, video games followed. Now, there are a lot of games concerning ninjas out there, but only a few of them actually really stand out. And since I've neglected Sega recently, I thought it was a good time to take a look at a classic from the Sega Mega Drive. My name is Itssbbz, and welcome to a brief story about the Revenge of Shinobi. 3 years after saving the world from the infamous criminal organization Itssbbz, Yo Musashi is living the quiet life with his wife Naoko and his master. Settling down with the ninjas of the Oboro clan, far away from fighting and destruction, Yo is finally at peace. However, from the remnants of Itssbbz, a new criminal organization is formed, titled Itssbbz. Itssbbz, still butthurt from the events that took place 3 years before, decides to get revenge on the Oboro clan and Yo Musashi. Waiting until Joe is away, Itssbbz attacks the Oboro clan's village, striking his master down and kidnapping his wife Naoko. As Joe returns from his travels, he finds what little remains of the Oboro village. Searching the rubble for answers, Joe manages to learn about Itssbbz's plot by his dying master. And just before his master draws his last breath, Joe vows to get his revenge on Itssbbz and to rescue his bride. Like many games in the 80s, the Shinobi games started in the arcades. And when Sega noticed how popular Shinobi was getting, they immediately started porting the game to a bunch of different hardware that was available at that time. One of those ports was for Sega's own console, the Master System, and this port received a lot of praise, both from the gaming community and the press, due to the smart changes when adapting the game from its original arcade version to a home console version. When it was time for Sega to take the step up into the 16-bit generation, Shinobi was a perfect candidate for a sequel on the new hardware. Sega put a small team to work on the new title, with the composer from Streets of Rage, Yosu Koshiro, and the newly hired Noriyoshi Oba as the team leader. Noriyoshi Oba was hired as a planner at Sega and had previously only worked on one other title, Wonder Boy and Monsterland, which had actually served as his on-the-job training. While working on Wonder Boy, Oba was very frustrated with the limitations of the Master System's hardware. Eager to create something that could not have been created on the Master System or any other existing hardware at the time, Oba set off to make a game that would not only show the potential of Sega's new hardware, but also to be deserving of the Shinobi name. The Revenge of Shinobi is a traditional side-scrolling platform game. The directional pad moves Joe around, while A is for ninjutsu, B is the attack button, and C is used for jumping. When Joe is at the peak of his jump, he can perform a somersault that acts as a double jump. Joe has the ability to throw a total of 8 shurikens while performing the somersault, and makes you go between the foreground layer and the background layer of the level. Being a master ninja, Joe can also use 4 different special ninjutsu techniques, but only once per level. Spread throughout the levels are bonus crates, and when you break them, they can drop a variety of power-ups and refills. These include simple refills, such as extra shurikens or health packs, as well as special items to gain extra lives or extra ninjutsu attacks. Some crates can even contain time bombs that detonate at touch or after its fuse run out. The goal of the adventure is for Joe to travel the world and fight his way through the different districts controlled by Itssbbz. There are a total of 8 districts in the game, and each district is divided into 3 scenes. 2 of these scenes are classic platforming levels, with the third being a battle against one of the different bosses of Itssbbz. And this is where the game gets a little strange. Some of these bosses I've seen before. Wait a second. Is that Spider-Man? There were actually a whole bunch of cultural icons thrown into the mix. Enemy characters resembling the Terminator, Spider-Man, Batman, Godzilla, and even Rambo. That must be like the coolest lineup of enemies ever. Arnold's just walking around while Godzilla's hanging out. And this game even manages to bridge the gap between Marvel and DC Comics. This must be like the coolest game ever. Later revisions removed many of these characters, in most cases with simple sprite swaps. But in one case, they actually improved the likeness of one character. In the second and third revision, Spider-Man was actually improved to look more like the real thing. And this was because Sega acquired the license for Spider-Man from making the game Spider-Man vs. Kingpin. A game that we will take a look at in the future because it fucking rocks. The second and third revision were the re-release versions of the Revenge of Shinobi. The third revision, for example, being the Sega CD version on the Sega Classics Arcade Collection. A collection including a variety of Sega classics, released in a bundle with the Sega CD add-on. Released in December of 1989, The Revenge of Shinobi was an instant smash hit, being the must-have Christmas game during the first year that the Sega Mega Drive was out in the hands of gamers. It's no surprise that the game received scores as high as 5 out of 5, however still getting some critique on the final boss being too difficult. The soundtrack is considered a classic and has been getting some incredible remixes throughout the years, and is still being played in gaming symphonies around the world. When I was younger, I was totally the kid running around saying Nintendo ruled the gaming world. But I always saw Sega as a formidable challenger to the throne, and I've always had great respect for them. On the good old 16-bit era and on the good old Sega Mega Drive, I've always had a couple of games that stood out for me. The Sonic games, for example, Comic Zone, and of course, The Revenge of Shinobi. This was a game that a friend of mine and I would play during late sleepovers, and we actually got pretty far into it. So let's see if I remember any of the secrets in the game, and let's beat up some Neo Seed punks.